It's a remarkable story, and I really appreciate you sharing that because it is, again, not something that everyone's going to experience specifically, but
Mm.
the idea that you're at the pinnacle and s- life happens, and
Yeah.
life shook you a little bit, and from that you really connected with this mastermind. Now are on a mission to also help with a ton of people with your masterminds, which we'll
Mhm.
talk about in just a moment. I want to bring up the Dave Ramsey situation because you said you worked with him in the early '90s. I had one
Yeah.
question, selfish question for myself because I
Sure.
was interested. I heard you tell the story, but I wanted to answer. I wanted an answer here. You said Dave Ramsey is gave you like a free trial, like something like that, to trial on his radio show, and then he's like, "All right,
Yeah.
you started blowing up with all these touches, and you got all these things." So then he's like, "All
Right.
right, we need a contract for a year." So I want to know, how much did it cost to become friends with Dave Ramsey? Like, how much was this? How much did this
That's good.
friendship cost back in the
That's good.
'90s?
That's good.
I'm
Yeah, it
genuinely.
wasn't cheap back then either. I think Dave was snowballing me. And let me just tell you the story real quick. I was on my way to work in the Madison Chamber of Commerce where I had my business. I just built a brand new 10,000 square foot store. It was state of the art. I mean, it was a beautiful place. And this is in the early 90s. Uh, there was a speaker at the Luby's cafeteria. A guy was going to be talking about a radio show he was starting here in Nashville, and that piqued an interest. And I went in, heard him speak, and went up afterwards. There was probably 20 people there. Went up afterwards, introduced myself, and I said, "Hey, why don't you come down a mile down the street? I want you to see my new store." So he got in his car and he drove down there and walked in. And he goes, "Oh my gosh, this place is beautiful." He said, "Tell me more about your business." And I did. He said, "This is just the kind of business, that I want to advertise on my show." He said, "Would you be one of my sponsors and advertise on my show?" And I said, "No, I never even heard of you. 10 minutes ago, it was the first time we met. You're wanting me to advertise with you. Like, what are you even about?" And he started telling me what he was going to do, teach people to get out of debt and all this stuff. And I thought to myself, that'll never work. That's what I was thinking to myself. And then he came back in the course of the conversation and he said, "Let me ask you something. If I give you a free week, would you try a free week?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "My audience is local here." He said, "People are going to hear all about your business, and let's do it for a week." And I said, "Okay, I got nothing to lose." So, man, he started talking about our store. He got me on the phone. We do a live spot. And for 3 days, people were pouring into our store. And I was like, "Man, this is like, what's that guy's name? Jones or whatever, drink the Kool-Aid." I said, "These people have drank the Kool-Aid. Like, what in the world?" I started listening to the show. And he was ranting and raving about getting out of debt, cutting up your credit cards. And I said, "This guy's about half lost his mind, but these people are listening. They're loving the show." So I called him 3 days in and I said, "Hey, listen, these people are biting this hook, line, and sinker, and I want to be involved in it." And he said, "Okay, you'll have to sign an annual contract." I said, "3 days ago, you gave me a week. Now you're going to make me sign an annual contract?" And he goes, "Yep. If you want on this show, you're going to sign an annual contract." Well, I don't mind sharing now. I don't even know what the spots cost now. It was $300 for a minute spot, and we would do them live. And we did that every day. I'd call in. He gave me the time to call in. But then it got about a month or two in where I was doing two spots a day. And so I would call at the beginning of the show. I'd call at the end of the show. We'd do a live spot. Dave would get me on. I would tell about a special. And people would come in. They would stop their cars. They would come in. They say, "Hey, I want to see that special," every day. It didn't matter what I was selling. They would buy that special. Well, that turned into a 21-year commitment that we sponsored his show. We were his second. So I guess you could say $600 a day is what I was spending, but I can't even begin to tell you what that gave back. And Dave and I became friends, and then he invited me to join his mastermind group. I didn't. This is You didn't ask for this story, but I'll tell you
It's
real quick.
just so everyone knows, it's only about 200 grand a year. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was a lot of money in the '90s
That's
too. You do
good.
that for 21 years. Like, I need to go remind him of that. Tell him that house he's got, I helped pay for. But
That's right.
anyway, uh, so I saw him at the Curb Center in Nashville. Mercy Me was playing. I didn't even know he was there. And he was going to the concession stand. And I said, "Hey," And he looked over and he said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I just enjoying this show." And so he went to the concession stand and he came back. Sharon was sitting with him just a few rows in front of us. And he came back there and he goes, "Hey, I want you to come to my office next Wednesday morning." And I said, "For what?" And he said, "I want you to think about joining my mastermind group." And I said, "I don't even know what a mastermind group is." And he said, "Just come to the office Monday morning. Wednesday morning, 7 o'clock, and I'll let you in, and we'll talk about it." Well, I went home and told Robin. I said, "I don't want to go." She said, "Why?" And I said, "You know how Dave is. He's going to be all up in my face. He's going to find out we've got debt. And I don't want to tell him that I've mortgaged some of these real estate properties that we bought. And he's going to be asking about all this personal stuff. I don't want to go." She goes, "Just go and try it." So I went, met all the other guys. Following week, I'd go back. This was every week. We met in his office. He had a conference room. And about 3 months in, these guys started really letting the veil down. They started sharing intimately about their relationships, about their kids, about the challenges they were facing, problems in their business. And I started going, "Oh my gosh,